I want to start out by wishing you a very Merry Christmas. You know, Christmas time is my most favorite time of the year. It really is the most wonderful time of the year. Now, Out of the Box Ministries, we believe that a vibrant and powerful experience of spirituality in the Christian faith is about more than believing that God exists or that Jesus came in a little manger to save us from our sins. God is a loving Father, and like every loving Father does, He wants to see His children experience success in all areas of life. And so He's given us His Word, the stories in the Bible. Through them, He's given us nuggets, treasures of wisdom and knowledge that He desires for us to mine out and find. As it says in Proverbs 25:2, it's the glory of God to conceal a matter and the glory of kings to seek it out. Now, as we're entering into this winter season, it's a dark time of year. And a lot of times in the world in which we live, there's a lot of uncertainty today, and we're wondering about certain things. But there is a power in this one little four-letter word, and that is hope. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the wise men. What I love about the Christmas time is that the 4 weeks leading up to Christmas in the church calendar is known as the season of Advent. Advent means that idea of coming. It's the coming of Christmas. But for the Christian, it's not just celebrating the coming of Christmas, the birth of Christ. We're also looking forward to when Jesus comes again, because He has promised to return, to restore all things. And so in that we have a hope. That is the Christian hope. But today we're going to look at the story of the wise men, what they reveal to us about what hope really is, how it's lived out, and the effect it has on us. But before we get into that story, I want to give a shout out this week, and the shout out goes out to Ricky. Ricky's been from the very beginning one of our subscribers, who even attended the church in Sussex. So shout out, God bless you. Merry Christmas to Ricky, Virginia, little Ricky, and Ange. So let's start off by reading in Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12, and then I'm going to jump ahead to 16 and 18. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi, or wise men, kings from the east, came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born the King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasure and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time that he had learned from the Magi. Now, this is usually a part in the Christmas play or the Christmas pageant that we have in the nativity scene where it's right in the middle. But I wanted to start out in this Christmas season talking about the Magi, because if you understand that last part, it says that King Herod knew that the Magi had seen the star about 2 years earlier. And so it was 2 years of preparation and travel for these kings to come to lay their gifts at the feet of the Messiah, at the feet of Jesus, when they were with Mary and Joseph. Now, maybe it was when Jesus was about 2 years old, but it's understand that their story from far away led them, and it was a 2-year time. And so this really starts at the beginning of the story, when that star rose and they noticed it. But I love what we can learn from the Magi, because these Magi really had to act in hope. They saw the star, but in order to see the star, in order to see that glimmer of hope in the sky that brought so much excitement, they had to be searching. When we need hope in our lives, we need to look for it. We need to search for it. You see, a lot of times we can get caught up in the daily grind and all the to-dos and all the muck and everything that is going on in our world. We can always be looking down and looking at how dirty, how messed up things are. In the book, The Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan, there was a man called the muckraker, or the one who is raking muck. And in this depiction that John Bunyan had, he was sitting there, he was too busy raking the dirt and sweeping the straw and the dirt to even notice the gift that was before him. And an angel was trying to give him a crown of glory. And sometimes when we're too busy looking at all that's wrong with the world, we miss out on the opportunity to experience hope. So the Magi, they teach us this lesson that to experience hope, we need to look for it. We need to look up. We need to be searching for it. I love what Jesus said in Matthew 7 and 8. He says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. And it's that looking for opportunities to hope. Knocking on the door of opportunity. Now, that doesn't mean that every single door will be open to us, but I guarantee that if you don't knock on any doors, you're not going to have any open doors for you. It's that old cliche that you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Hope is what searches for opportunity. Hope is what looks up. Hope is what looks around. And sometimes we need that hope in the darkest night. And it's amazing to think about when the Magi found that hope, when they found that glimmer of hope. It wasn't in the daytime when everything was bright. No, the star appeared at night. And hope usually comes, that glimmer of hope that we really need usually comes in the darkest hour. It usually comes in that darkest moment. They always say that it's darkest right before the dawn, right before the sun comes up. And it's in those darkest moments that we need to look up. Look up with hope. Search the sky, search for hope, and be willing to really seek it out the way the Magi did. They were probably not just looking at the sky and daydreaming. They were looking for something specific because they knew that when they saw that star, they seemed to know what it meant. There was a fulfillment of a prophecy. There was a revelation of the divine. There was this mystery revealed, and they knew it was powerful, it was important, and they were ready to move in it. It's like what Jesus said in Luke 21:28. He says, he's talking about the end times, and he's talking about all the things that are going to happen, the tribulation and wars and rumors of wars. And he says, when all of these bad things are going on in your life, when all these things happen, look up, for your redemption is near. And that's what hope does. In the midst of trial, in the midst of challenge, in the midst of difficulties, hope looks up. And you need to look up in hope, to search for hope in order to experience it. But hope is not just this passive idea, this warm and fuzzy feeling that we have. Hope is the precursor of faith. And Hebrews 11:1 says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And hope is that inspiration, that motivation that we get that leads into faith. I think about Peter when he was walking on the water with Jesus. And before he even did that, before Peter walked on the water, he had a movement of hope. Because Peter looks out at Jesus and he says to him, if it's really you, call to me and invite me, ask me to walk out on the water to you. See, Peter didn't just jump out of the boat. Before he did that, he wanted to make sure that there was a reason to have faith. He had a faith in the word of Jesus, but he needed that hope that caused him to ask for it, to caused him to search for it, caused him to say, I hope I can do this, but I'm not sure. I need your assurance. And so he, in hope, asked. He moved his mouth. He did that request in hope that led to the faith that he had to walk out on the water with Jesus. And it's the same thing with the Magi. These men not only had this hope that there was a new king of the Jews, but that hope caused them to move. They traveled, they prepared, they got their camels, they got their traveling necessities ahead of time ready, they got their gifts, and they traveled and made the 2-year journey from the east. Now, we don't know exactly where they came from or how long it took, but let's just say it was a difficult and long, arduous journey. But they made the decision not to just sit back and wait and say, oh, that would be really nice. Oh, it would be good. No, they had this mindset that hope led them to move. They stepped out in hope. You see, hope that's passive is really no hope at all. But hope that causes us to search for something and then act upon the opportunity, that's the real kind of hope that's going to make a difference in our lives. To say, I hope this happens. Now, it's like saying, now, if you hope to win the lottery someday, but you never buy a lottery ticket, that's not a real hope. That's just a wish. But these Magi had this hope where they were willing to step out. See, hope doesn't sit back, it steps out. And so they had the hope to step out, to move in hope, to pursue in hope. But if you think about the hope that they must have had, it wasn't just this slight little thing, but that glimmer of hope, that star, that really was that goal that they had to be strong enough in them to make it through those dark nights as they traveled. Now, I'm sure that you've gone through difficulties. We all have, and the Magi are no exception. Sometimes we look at these stories and it's all good, but think about what they had to go through to get to Jesus, to come to Jerusalem. We knew they had a long journey, and the long journey wasn't just like putting in their GPS and saying, okay, where am I going? Jerusalem. They didn't even know where they was going. And think about that. How often, when you're uncertain in times, do you need a powerful hope to give you that motivation to continue? There were probably cold nights. There was probably dangers of raiders and marauders and pirates as they were traveling. They probably needed an entourage, and it was probably a long journey as they were on their camels and journeying. It wasn't just a quick, hey, let's take a little trip down the road to Jerusalem. No, they traveled quite a distance. And the longer they traveled, the more dangerous it would be. And yet in that long time of waiting, that long time of pursuing, that long time of traveling, they had this powerful hope, this hope that endured the journey, this hope that motivated and fueled their passage, that they had the hope that they would reach their destination. And it was amazing because that hope wasn't even a guarantee. A lot of times we can think, yeah, well, if this happens, then I'll have hope. But hope is not contingent. Hope is confident. And they had that confident hope. As it says in Romans 8:24, if we hope for what we already have, that's no hope at all. But it says, understand that I hope that something will happen. I hope to see something great and amazing. And they did. They traveled in that hope. They moved in that hope. But hope doesn't just stop with movement. When the Magi got to where Jesus was, they were overjoyed, and they kneeled down before the infant king, before the baby, and they gave their gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And I love that idea of hope didn't just move, but it gave. They gave these expensive gifts. And it's that understanding that hope is something about giving, about taking a risk, about investing. And understand that if you're really going to have a hope in something and it's going to come to fruition, if it's going to really blossom into something beautiful, it sometimes takes having that risk to step out, to invest in it. If you're going to give hope a chance, you need to take a chance on hope. And so these Magi, they teach us that they gave these extravagant gifts in hope of having a good relationship with this king or this young boy who would one day be king. And again, it was not of a guarantee, but it was a hope that was like, I'm willing to take a risk. But I love what they did. Not only did they give these gifts, but think about it. In this idea of this generosity that they had, they gave of their time. You know, in the Christian faith, God calls us to give, to invest in His kingdom, to invest in the eternal kingdom. And there's a church tradition of giving 10% of your income. But sometimes we can get so caught up in doing the easy thing. Sometimes the easiest thing to do is to give a check, to write a check to the church and say, okay, the pastor and then the lay leaders in the church, they're going to do the ministry. But sometimes really that generosity is giving of our time. And in the Christian faith and the Christian tradition, we're asked not only to give of our tithes, of our treasures, but also of our talents and our time. And sometimes the most valuable thing you can do for someone in hoping for a good relationship, in hoping for a good outcome, in hoping for a good business venture, or in hope of anything, is to invest your time. Time is the one thing that you can't get back. And so these magi, they gave of their gifts, but they also gave of 2 years of their time. They really invested. They took a risk. They stepped out, and they did so sacrificially. But it's that understanding of how much are we willing to give in hopes of achieving something. Because giving in hope is like an investment. Whether you invest in the stock market or mutual funds or real estate or bonds, whatever it is, you're always doing that investment with hope. It's not with a guarantee that you're going to make it all back, but it's with the hope. Now, there is a basic rationale that it will grow, but it's with that hope. And the idea here is, how much are you willing to give in hope? How much are you willing to hope for and see what is going to come of it? In 2 Corinthians 9:6, it says, remember this, whoever sows sparingly will reap sparingly, but whoever sows abundantly or generously will reap generously. And so when we think about what we hope for, what we hope to accomplish, what we hope to achieve in our lives, whether our relationship with God, our relationship with others, or in any endeavor in which we give ourselves, the amount to which we're willing to give is going to determine how much we're going to experience and get back. If we give only a little bit, if we take only a little risk, if we will invest only a little bit, we can't hope to get a whole lot. But if we're willing to really put some skin in the game, we give a little risk, give a little bit more of our time or our talents or our tithes than is comfortable, we can hope in having an abundance. And so it's that understanding that hope is this power, this promise that we have that causes us to search for it, to move in it, and to give out of hope. But the real value in hope is what you put your hope in. And I want to ask you today, what are you putting your hope in? We can put our hope in money. We can put our hope in security. Maybe we put our hope in a relationship with someone else, that they'll make everything okay. We can put our hope in the economy or in politics. But the one thing to really put our hope in is in Jesus Christ. The whole reason for this season is that God so loved the world that He sent His one and only Son for us. And I love the beauty of what it says in Romans, that we hope in the love of God, in the goodness of God. And it says that He who did not spare His only Son, but freely gave Him up for us, how much more will He not give us all things? When you put your hope in God, you put your hope in that He is the Redeemer. He is your protector. He is your provision. He has proven His love for you. And that when you seek for Him, you will find Him, as He promised. When you move towards Him, the Bible promises that if you draw near to God, He will draw near to you with all of His blessings. And if you give, it said, the Bible tells us, give and it will be given unto you in abundance, multiplied back to you. And we do that with hope and with faith that God is a good God who loves us and desires the best for us. So what is your hope in today? Is your hope in yourself, or is your hope in the God who loves you? I hope in this Christmas time that you experience the hope that God has for us. And so I want to just end with this. Romans 15:13, which says, may the God of all hope fill you with hope and joy in the power of His blessing. Thank you for joining me today. I pray that this message has inspired, encouraged, and filled you up with the hope of God. I want to say Merry Christmas, and remember, Jesus loves you, and so do I.